Welcome all, it's Russ, and this video is just a basic intro into Python, which we'll be using in this class. If you haven't used Python before, you don't need to worry, because this class is really not a class about Python. It's a class about programming, and what you're going to discover is that the key thing about programming is not the language. I mean, the language is important, of course, but the key thing about programming is understanding what you're attempting to do. What you're going to find out is that anything that you were able to do in a different language, you're going to be able to do in Python. It's just going to be a matter of finding out what is the syntax for doing it. And so we're going to spend some time at the beginning of the class introducing Python, showing you how it works, giving you some of the basic tools, some of the basic rules. What you're going to find out is that it works pretty much like any other language that you've seen. You just need to figure out what is the exact code to type to get it done. So let's switch over. So to start with, there are a lot of good Python programming environments. If you want to, you can install Python directly. That is from python.org. You can download and install Python, and it includes a little tiny thing called idle, which is basically a little text editor, not much better than Notepad, but it allows you to run programs in there as well. A lot of the students coming out of 110 have already used Mu, so that's what we're going to be using as our default in this class. So the examples I'll be using Mu. Mu does have a couple of nice features that make it a little bit better than idle, but if you like something else, if you want to use VS Code or any other editor, that's just fine. Python code that you write in one environment should work on all of them. You need to make sure that you test it by uploading code into Gradescope, but it pretty much you can use whatever editor you think is good. All right, so let's go show you how Mu works. All right, so Mu is pretty simple here. So other than load save, we have the run button here. This is just going to run your current program. If you've got a bunch of different files in a directory, Python doesn't require that you have a make file or a configuration or something like that that defines exactly what the program is. The rule is very simple. If you have multiple files and you hit run, then Mu is going to run whatever the current active file is. So if I've got several files open here, I can say I want to run this program. When I hit run, this middle file is essentially the main file for my program. And we'll talk about how to handle imports. We'll talk about how to write a main method and all that sort of stuff coming up real soon. But the key thing is, if you're using multiple files, make sure that you always switch to the proper file before you hit run. Debug is even better because debug will run, but it runs with a debugger enabled. That allows you a couple of cool features. First of all, you can set breakpoints. So if we've got code here, x equals 1, y equals 2, we can click over here to set a breakpoint. That breakpoint is ignored if we're doing an ordinary run. So let's save the program first. Now, when we hit run, the program simply runs and it's done. So we'll hit stop to clear that window. But if we hit debug, then it will pause here. So the program has paused at line 2 here. And the cool thing is that we can now inspect. We've set x equals 1, so we have the ability to look at it. There are 3 basic buttons, which if you've used a debugger in any other language, you've seen this before. If not, then this is new to you. The key buttons that you'll use, of course, you could just hit continue, which means have the program run until it either terminates or it hits another breakpoint. That's very useful sometimes. But they also have the single step buttons. You can do a step over. What step over means is it means go to the next line in the current function. Step in works the same way as step over unless you're calling a function. If you're calling a function, then what step into will do is that it will step into the function that you're calling and automatically pause at the very first line of that function. That allows you to go in and examine the details of a function. So step over says stay in the current function. Step in means go into something you're calling. Step out simply says, I'm done looking at this function. I think it's going to work. Run until this function returns and come out. So really that's the basics of Mu. So I hope it was interesting, I hope it was useful, and I'll see you next time. Bye now.